Okay, let's unpack this. Why is the United States seemingly willingly placing its military readiness, its critical technology, and really its whole economic future at the mercy of its biggest geopolitical rival?
That really is the urgent question, isn't it? Today, we're doing a deep dive into this escalating economic confrontation with China, specifically looking at these critical rare earth minerals.
Yeah, and the news hook here is, frankly, alarming. Recent reports show a serious escalation. We're talking threats from Beijing, potential retaliatory tariffs, maybe even up to 100% on some Western goods. This isn't just a trade spat anymore.
No, not at all. The experts we looked at are calling China's control over these vital materials a key leverage point. And some even say it's, well, the quote is a life or death matter for the 21st century. Pretty stark language.
It really is. Now, our source material, it lays out a pretty clear conservative policy blueprint. It's focused on achieving, well, a partial economic decoupling.
Right. And the strategy there is really rooted in securing national sovereignty, protecting those supply chains. The idea is that short-term market efficiency, that takes a backseat to long-term resilience.
So our mission today is to extract that blueprint, analyze it. We're going to look at three key areas where the sources say decisive action, and they mean real legislation, not just talk is needed.
To protect national security, secure those critical supply chains, and, finally try and break Beijing's grip on these markets.
Exactly. So let's start with the immediate danger, the national security side of things.
Okay, so the first thing is really grasping the scale of this threat. China's dominance over these critical minerals. It's not some accident. It's the result of a deliberate long-term strategy, decades long.
Methodical, even.
Yes, methodical, aimed at controlling the global supply choke point.
And we even have the intent stated pretty clearly way back in 1992, right? Deng Xiaoping said rare earths have extremely important strategic significance. He actually compared them to Middle Eastern oil.
That's right. It's a powerful comparison. Shows it was premeditated. They saw the strategic value way back then.
And, well, it seems to have paid off for them. The numbers are pretty staggering.
They really are. China controls nearly, get this, 90% of the world's rare earth element processing capacity. And we're not just talking about digging it out of the ground.
Right. It's the refining, the processing. That's the real bottleneck for all the high-tech stuff.
Exactly. And specifically, China refines something like 80% of the world's cobalt and maybe 60% of the world's lithium.
Cobalt and lithium. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's EV batteries, advanced defense systems, all that.
Everything. And the U.S., how much cobalt do we refine domestically?
0%.
0%. That's it.
Really?
Well, it's a huge vulnerability. Unacceptable, really, according to these sources.
Yeah, you can see why they're calling it a major national security failure.
Ah.
Our modern military, F-35s, advanced communications, sensors.
All of it can't be built, can't be maintained without these rare earth elements. Our entire conventional military edge kind of relies on the goodwill of an adversary.
It's quite a thought. And let's make it even more concrete. Take antimony, for example.
Yeah, antimony.
This is a strategic mineral. It's indispensable for ammunition, for fireproofing military gear, even civilian equipment.
Right, very important.
And currently, the U.S. has no domestic mine producing it, zero production, even though we apparently have reserves here.
Which means American security, everything from, say, fire safety in hospitals to the effectiveness of troops in combat is basically, and I'm quoting here, at the mercy of the Chinese government's whims.
And we know they'll use it. We saw it in 2010, didn't we, with Japan?
Exactly. The Senkaku Islands crisis.
Yeah.
Beijing cut the supply of rare earths to Tokyo. It's a proven playbook, economic coercion. They could absolutely weaponize this control again.
That dependence is just
Yeah.
terrifying. So if the threat is this clear, how do we move past just talking about it? How do we actually start, fixing this?
Well, the source is pretty clear. Effective decoupling needs durable legislative action. Full stop. Executive orders, they're temporary, can be reversed.
Yeah.
To really secure the future, these priorities have to be set in law.
Okay, so step one, legislatively speaking.
The crucial first step, according to this blueprint, is for Congress to agree on and legally define an initial short list of absolutely critical sectors.
Like what? What are the candidates?
Things like advanced computing, basic pharmaceuticals, definitely rare mineral processing, and anything vital for defense. A focused list.
Okay, define the critical sectors. Then what?
Then the approach has to shift away from just, encouraging trade towards mandating security. The sources strongly recommend using quotas.
Quotas.
Yes, described as the most sure, direct means to limit China's role in those critical sectors. Limit it to a level where if there's a crisis, we can replace it relatively easily.
Okay, direct quotas. And I assume tariffs play a role too?
Oh, yeah. Quotas need to be paired with aggressive tariffs. The recommendation is setting them considerably higher than 25%.
Considerably higher. Why so high?
To overwhelm the huge state subsidies China uses to basically undercut everyone else and dominate the market, make it economically non-viable for them in these critical areas.
Wow, okay. Quotas plus really high tariffs. That sounds aggressive. Wouldn't that, provoke massive retaliation, maybe even violate WTO rules?
That's the tension, absolutely. The argument in this blueprint is basically that national security demands these actions sort of regardless of WTO concerns. The risk of dependency is seen as far greater than the risk of retaliation right now.
Mm.
Plus, they argue Congress needs to close loopholes, stop the policy gaming, like cutting the de minimis exception.
Okay, de minimis. For listeners not up on the jargon, what is that exactly, and how is China exploiting it?
So de minimis is basically a rule that lets shipments valued under $800 come into the U.S., bypassing most duties, fees, and even safety checks sometimes.
Under $800. Okay.
So what PRC entities are apparently doing is taking huge bulk shipments, the thousands of cheap electronics, or maybe even drug ingredients, and breaking them down.
Into tiny packages.
Exactly. Tens of thousands of tiny, individually wrapped packages, all under that $800 threshold. They ship them directly to U.S. consumers or warehouses.
So they just sail past all the tariffs and duties meant to protect our industries.
Completely circumvent them. It's described as basically an organized way to game the system, sneak past our defenses.
Okay, that definitely needs to stop.
Right. And for the really vital stuff, think life-saving generic medicines, the sources say we need to go even further than quotas and tariffs. We need mandates.
Mandates? Like what?
Using tools like the Defense Production Act, that old Korean War-era law, letting the government direct industry or maybe new specific laws
To do what?
to make PRC involvement in certain key supply chains flat out illegal, total exclusion, deemed necessary for these, absolutely critical sectors.
Exclusion. Okay, so that's one side, blocking the dependency. But the other side is building our own capacity, right? Filling that gap.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to that bureaucracy problem you mentioned. We can't stop relying on China if we can't get our own resources out of the ground and processed.
And the situation there is just, well, it's pretty bad. The average time it takes a U.S. mining project to go from exploration to actually operating.
29 years.
29 years, average.
That's thick, I'd be right.
That's the figure cited. It's not just frustrating. The sources frame it as a profound national security threat in itself.
What takes so long? Is it state rules, federal? Where's the bottleneck?
The sources point mainly at outdated federal laws and policies they see as overly restrictive. Specifically, they mention reforming NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and the old 1872 mining law.
So these laws create this incredibly long review and permitting process, even for critical minerals we desperately need.
That's the argument, a complex, multi-decade process. So the solution proposed isn't about, say, eliminating environmental checks entirely, but implementing a streamlined, science-based approach, something that actively cuts through the excessive federal red tape and dramatically shortens that 29-year timeline.
Makes sense. We need to speed up projects like, wasn't there one in Idaho with antimony?
Exactly, the Stibnite Gold Project. Holds the biggest antimony reserve outside of China. So, boosting domestic production by reforming these old statutes, it's treated as absolutely non-negotiable for national security.
Okay, now we have to talk about the pushback. Because decoupling, especially mandatory decoupling like this, it isn't free, right?
Not at all. And critics, often, let's say, encouraged by intense corporate lobbying, are very quick to point out the costs, the economic risks.
What's the most obvious cost?
The immediate one, the one you can sort of quantify, is higher prices for consumer imports. Wow. Things like electronics, other durable goods.
Yeah.
The existing tariffs, already estimated to cost tens of billions annually.
Okay, higher prices. But you mentioned lobbying. What's the real driver behind the big corporate pushback?
It seems to be the potential hit to stock prices. The fear of share price declines for major U.S. firms that are really heavily exposed to the Chinese market.
Like who?
Think Apple, Boeing, big pharma companies. They have a lot invested in the current setup, the status quo. They're fighting hard against major changes.
So beyond just higher prices at the store, what are the big risks the critics are raising?
Well, they argue aggressive decoupling could, push the world into recession, maybe shatter the whole WTO global trade framework. trigger a really costly trade war where U.S. exporters get hammered.
Serious concerns.
Definitely. But this conservative blueprint, it basically argues those short-term costs, while real, are minor compared to the long-term benefits. They're overwhelmingly outweighed by reducing risk and gaining security.
Okay, let's get into those benefits then. What's the first big payoff they cite?
Protection from what they pretty aggressively call an innovation parasite.
Oof, strong words. What do they mean by that?
The idea is that China basically sees American tech as something to be siphoned off through coercion, spying, IP theft, you name it.
Right.
So decoupling policies would better protect American technology simply by cutting off PRC access. The thinking is keeping our tech secure, improves U.S. quality of life, maintains our leadership edge, starve the parasite, essentially.
Okay, protecting innovation. What's the second benefit? It had something to do with money, right? American money.
Yeah, preventing what they call financial treason.
Financial treason. How so?
It means restricting American money, think pension funds, corporate investments from flowing out into China, especially into critical sectors. Dual-use tech, like advanced chips, AI, batteries.
Why is that treason?
The argument is simple. Why should American money help the PRC win in key tech races? Especially when, at the same time, U.S. taxpayers are funding efforts here to reshore those same industries, like with the GPS Act.
Yeah, it seems counterproductive.
Exactly. Or as they put it, it's like robbing taxpayer funds to help your rival beat you.
Okay, makes sense. And the final big benefit, the ultimate one.
Crisis resilience.
Right.
It's about ensuring that if a major global crisis hits, maybe a conflict over Taiwan, maybe another pandemic, America isn't held hostage.
Because our supply chains are cut off.
Precisely. Not held hostage for critical components or advanced sensors or essential medicines. It's about reducing China's ability to hamstring American industry and defense. That benefit. You can't easily put a dollar figure on it. It's about sovereignty.
Okay, so let's try to summarize this deep dive. The argument laid out here is that securing America requires moving from talk to mandatory action.
Right. First, legally define those critical sectors.
Second, use mandatory quotas and bans to cut dependency and close loopholes like de minimis, stop the gaming.
And third, urgently slash that domestic red tape, that 29-year mining delay needs to go to unleash our own resources. Build it here.
The policy steps seem clear, detailed, but definitely involve some tough choices, politically unpopular ones in the short run.
Yeah, they absolutely demand that Congress legislate for security, not just, throw subsidies around and hope for the best.
So we've laid out the policy steps from this blueprint. I guess the real question for you, the listener, is this. Is the American public and are its representatives willing to stomach the short-term pain, maybe slightly higher prices for some goods, in exchange for, well, buying back America's military security and industrial sovereignty from its main global competitor?
Or will the economic comfort of how things are now, will that continue to dictate the nation's security for the rest of this century? That seems to be the core choice presented.